Welcome, everybody, to this Tuesday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host for the evening and all the evenings, Amanda Head. My co-host and Just the News editor-in-chief, John Solomon, is out on assignment tonight. And I'm reporting to you tonight, as always, from our Washington, D.C. and the Wired2Fishcoffee.com studios. Wired2Fish Coffee is the official coffee of Just the News. And you can go right now to Wired2Fishcoffee.com and get an amazing 10% discount using the promo code JUSTNEWS. All right, plenty of news to get to on this very busy Tuesday evening. So let's start with Ukraine. As various outlets are reporting, a deal may soon be reached between President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky regarding mineral rights in that country. And that would go towards helping to pay back the United States for its assistance in Ukraine's war against Russia, as well as improving relations between Ukraine and the Trump administration. And this all comes after President Trump's administration opened up negotiations with Russia days ago and is continuing to put pressure on the European members of NATO to increase their military spending. And, you would think that getting one step closer to ending the war in Ukraine, that would be a good thing, and it would be an even better thing if President Trump could get European nations to start paying for their own defense. That actually results in a weaker Russian position in the long run, but American media companies don't exactly see it that way. Here's MSNBC trotting out this old line with Alexander Vindman.
We're no longer the good actor. We no longer believe in the same values we did just a month ago. So it's, to me, I start to wonder, I'm not big into conspiracies because I've seen government as a leaky sieve. Things just don't stay secret. But now I'm starting to wonder, what does Putin have on Trump that he's willing to bend over so hard, to bend over backwards to really support Putin's agenda?
Russia, Russia, Russia. Does anyone even buy that anymore? The Trump administration is not looking to embolden Russia. They are looking to end a costly and deadly war that is making America weaker, because it seems one thing that all of the people in support of continuing the war in Ukraine keep overlooking is that our country is out of money and has been for a very long time. And that leads me to Doge and the budget. Both hot topics on Capitol Hill today. In fact, a lot of Democrats had some, not very nice things to say about Elon Musk and Doge's efforts to cut wasteful spending, including Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who had this to say.
If you could speak directly to Elon Musk, what would you say?
Off.
That's it.
What a deep and intellectual argument against Elon Musk. But it is weird to see weird to see how trying to cut waste and abuse in government generates so much anger from some of our politicians in Washington, D.C., and they are treating Doge like it's an existential threat. Take House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He compared what is happening with President Trump, Elon, and Doge to the Civil War and the Civil Rights Movement. Yep, check it out.
You understand the scale of the threat, and you have ideas about how to interrupt what feels like something that we have not experienced since the Civil War in terms of the threat to our republic.
Well, it's certainly the case that we understand the scale of the threat. That can't be doubted. The CBC, which I'm a part of, definitively understands the scale of the threat. Our communities have been under siege, as you pointed out, since before the Civil War. I'm a direct descendant of those very communities, so we understand the struggle, the history, the strength of people like John Lewis, which we're going to channel. That's my experience. That's my personal experience. That's my family's experience. And so we understand that. And as a caucus, it's definitively the case that we understand it.
He didn't miss a chance to slide that descendancy in there, did he? And I think the actual existential threat to our republic is the fact that we are drowning in debt. In fact, more debt than any country in the history of planet Earth. But that's just my 2 cents. And speaking of all of that, just before the show tonight, I sat down with Congressman Ralph Norman to talk about balancing the budget and much, much more. Take a look. Joining me now, representing the great state of South Carolina, Congressman Ralph Norman. Congressman, thank you so much for being here, sir.
My pleasure. Glad to be with you, Amanda.
All right, sir, give it to me straight. No mixer. What's happening on the floor? What's the status of the votes? It's such a skinny majority. Do you have the votes?
I think we do, Amanda. We discussed it in caucus this morning. No bill is ever perfect. In a perfect world, we would have 15 trillion in cuts. You would have more, savings that take place. But, the product that we ended up with was a floor of $1.5 trillion with a $2 trillion target which can be done. We ended up with funding the Trump tax cuts. We ended up giving Tom Homan the money to continue the deportations that are happening now of gang members and other illegals. So all in all, it's a good bill. I'll be supporting it. And I think that there are a couple who are still having doubts. I think that's where you will see Donald Trump come into play, and I think he's calling them. And, you know, the alternative, Amanda, if we don't get this, is to go back to the Senate, which basically has no cuts of any magnitude. And the fact that, you know, you would be dealing at the end of the day with Democrats. And we've got a bill that's been hashed out. We've worked on it in Budget Committee. And Jody Harrington has done a great job for the last several months. So it's time to pass it. I think it will pass. And every vote from here on out is going to be close because Democrats aren't supporting us on anything.
I know that. Sir, I want to ask you about this process because anytime you have something like this, it's a learning process and it can be revelatory. It can show certain members of Congress, it can show their priorities, where their loyalties lie. Have there been any surprises for you as far as what you've learned from other members of Congress and whether this is a priority to actually cut spending?
What we're getting ready to find out is, are Republicans going to deliver on what they campaign on? What is across the board, I would say, with every Republican running for Congress or really any office is cut government, less taxes, less government. And now we have a chance to do that. And so now that the rubber is meeting the road, every tax dollar in Washington, D.C. has got an advocate for it. And they've come out in full display. But we can't, everyone acknowledges we can't keep on the financial path that we're on. We don't have a income problem. We got a spending problem. That's the cancer. That's why our debt's been downgraded. And if America is to remain that shining city on the hill, now's the time to step up. And at the end of the day, I think we will. I think people want to see Donald Trump's tax policies not expire as they are, will expire at the end of this year. And it'll end up with a 22% tax increase for every American if we let it expire. And I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. Sir, I know you are one of those folks who you would take a red line and go through every single line item and just start, you would make the paper bleed. But when it comes to that $2 trillion goal, you know, if you listen to the rhetoric over on legacy media and Democrats, it's going to be Medicare and Medicaid, it's going to be Social Security, it's going to be our military. It's none of that, is it?
No, and you know, by the reconciliation rules, Amanda, you can't touch Social Security and you can't touch Medicare. Now, on Medicaid, what we are talking about is it's no cuts. It's just block grants to the states. Let them decide the ones that are funded and continue to stay on Medicaid and putting work requirements in. That's what's so interesting about the Democrats. They don't believe in working to get a paycheck. They're 40-year-old men who don't have any visible means of income getting Medicaid payments. That's not right. That's not right to those who really need it. So, are we looking at every agency within Medicaid to see where things may be altered? Yes. But what I just mentioned, work requirements shouldn't even be a problem, but it is, and we're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, well, when it comes to work requirements for federal employees who were asked to give 5 examples of what they did last week, their hair is on fire. So I don't know why that's so difficult for them. But, sir, one of the things I love about this timeline right now is that Democrats are so opposed to Donald Trump and anything he does, including anything that Elon Musk does, that they have found themselves in a very uncomfortable position, which is opposing rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse. Now, for me, trying to be a neutral arbiter, if I put myself in the shoes of a Democrat voter, if I heard my representative or senator saying things like, we've got to be more responsible about these cuts, I would think to myself, I think they're trying to spend more of my money. How do they sell this even to their own voters that it's a bad thing to root out this garbage?
Well, it's not selling to the voters. That's why 77 million people didn't buy into it. They had the last 4 years under the Biden administration, Amanda, has been horrible. It's been atrocious. Interest rates, crime, border crossings to the tune of 15 million people over 159 countries. And what Elon Musk is doing, free of charge, and what he's doing is identifying areas that should be looked at. He's following the money trail. And the problem with the Democrats, they think the money's theirs, and they think no one should look at it. Well, he's got the ability and he's got the mindset to dig in, find out where the waste and fraud is, and then let we the people judge. And we do this. Every business in America does this. Every family does this on their budget. And the fact that he asked federal bureaucrats who are getting a paycheck from our tax dollars, which averages over $106,000 a year, to name 5 things that they did. I had a reporter ask me that today. I said, that's a perfectly good question. I reeled off 5, and I said, I could reel off 10 to 15 that I did last week. Mm-hmm. They think that's an insult. But it's a new day in America. People aren't buying it. And I think the golden age is here, and we're going to right the wrong that the last 4 years has inflicted on the American people.
Absolutely. Sir, I love following your timeline, but something that you tweeted made me nearly spit out my coffee. You said that not a single government agency is occupying even half of their office space. So it's just sitting there empty. Can we just sell it off? Can we move this half of this agency and this half of this agency into the same building? This seems like the lowest hanging fruit there has ever been.
And I think that's at the end of the day, when Elon Musk gets finished going from, the first agency was USAID, then he's going to, I think, Department of Education. Then he will go to the DOD and then Social Security, every agency. And the genius of Elon Musk is on full display. And so if an office building is not needed, what do you do in the private sector? You sell it. And just because it's the federal government, that's our building. That's our money that we get from it. And so I think that will be coming later on. And we just started. And the American people are ready for it. And I will tell you, there are a lot of us here in Congress who are ready to fight for it and put this country back on a fiscal sanity path, for lack of a better word.
Well, I have seen you fight for that fiscal sanity, and I am looking forward to seeing this fight follow through to the end. Congressman Ralph Norman, always a joy having you here with us. We learned so much from you. Thank you for being here, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. Coming up after the break, we're going to discuss more about what President Trump is doing to secure America, including with the war in Ukraine and sending illegals to Gitmo, to Guantanamo Bay, because believe it or not, some Democrats are actually against it. That's next.
Hey, America, are you looking for a voice that really represents your values? AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens, was created to champion the needs of Americans who believe in faith, family, and freedom, like you and I do. With over 2 million members, their mission is simple but powerful: to protect the interests of all freedom-loving Americans, safeguarding Social Security and Medicare, and advocating for common sense policies. Members gain access to incredible member benefits, including the award-winning AMAC magazine, from exclusive discounts on travel insurance and everyday services to a strong voice in Washington. AMAC is here to make a difference in your life and our nation. Joining AMAC isn't just about benefits, regardless of your age. It's about belonging to a community that stands for timeless American values. In honor of President Trump's first 100 days in office, AMAC is offering an incredible deal. Enroll in a 5-year AMAC membership like I do for 47% off. Normally $60. Join today for only $32. Visit amac.us/justnews today to take advantage of this special offer. That's amac.us/justnews. Join AMAC and become part of a movement that stands for your family and your future.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. I'm Amanda Head. John Solomon, my co-host, is out on assignment tonight, but he's going to be back here with me tomorrow night. And there are a lot of issues around the world that President Trump has been trying to fix this week. A lot of the attention has been on the war in Ukraine. But in previous weeks, President Trump has set his sights on the Middle East, particularly Gaza and the fight between Israel and Hamas and the backers of Hamas, Iran. And John and I were fortunate enough last week at CPAC to speak with Ali Reza Jafar's Cressida, the author of The Iran Threat, and he's also deputy director of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, about how President Trump can successfully counter Iran after years of the Biden administration playing right into their hands. Take a look.
I want to bring something into the conversation that we've spoken to you about in the past, but it's got a new, fresh context, because we've talked to you a lot in the past, excuse me, about these hundreds of millions that the State Department or governmental agencies meant for, counterterrorism in Afghanistan, and it ended up with the Taliban. And now we are learning, because of Doge, because of what is coming out of USAID, that was not just a flash in the pan. It continues to happen. I know you've kept an eye on this. How disappointing is it for you, and how quickly does there need to be a turnaround?
I think it's so important to deny the Iran regime any kind of resources, direct or indirect, whether it's under the cover of selling oil, whether it's under the cover of their proxies in the region, under different pretexts. Because whatever money that ends up in the hands of the Iran regime, ends up in the pocket of the mullahs, and second, the Revolutionary Guards, to fund terror and instability in the region. The regime has been relying heavily on their proxies, and what they need for them is money and arms and training, and that's why you need to cut off all of their resources. Most importantly, remember, the people of Iran reject this regime. There have been 9 rounds of major uprisings in Iran seeking for change in all 31 provinces of the country. This is an opportunity for the whole world to see that the threat of the Iran regime can end once and for all. And without boots on the ground, without appropriating any money, just deny the Iran regime the resources they need, and also create space for those on the ground who are fighting the Ayatollahs to bring about peace and stability.
Ali, one of the great secrets that a lot of Americans don't know is that during the Biden years, the Iraqi oil industry was basically taken over and annexed by Iran, and that gives Iran a lot of cash. Tell us some of the things that the Trump administration has done to squeeze those sort of pipelines down and start to starve Iran of the cash it uses to attack free people.
Well, Iraq has been basically the backyard of the Iran regime for years, at least since 2003, when the Iran regime basically took over Iraq, and they have heavily taken advantage of the situation there, not just politically dominating the process there and turning that government into a proxy government, but using Iraq as a means to go around the sanctions. How do they sell their oil through the Persian Gulf? They use Iraq as a way to cover their own sale of oil, that they camouflage it under Iraqi oil, but it's actually the Iran regime's oil. They're also using that to basically for financial resources to get the money through Iraq to the Iranian regime. So if you want to focus, one of the main places that you want to focus is actually Iraq. That how it actually is being used by Tehran
one of the dirty
to fund their terror and sell their oil, still committing sanctions.
Yeah, amazing stuff.
Ali, before we let you go, I have no doubt that the Ayatollah is going to be keeping his eye on peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, not because they are directly involved, but I think for 2 reasons. Number one, because as President Trump is opening up these lines of communication with each of these countries, that starts a relationship. But subsequent to that, and number 2, that's going to allow there to be more conversations between President Trump and Putin, and that's going to affect Iran, especially with respect to oil. How consequential do you think that is to Iran, the peace deal?
Well, whether it's the situation in Ukraine or the situation in the Middle East, peace is a red line for the Ayatollahs, because this regime thrives on crisis, thrives on chaos that they instigate. Guess what? The drones that end up targeting Ukraine has been provided by the Iran regime to the Russians to target Ukraine. Look at the situation in the region. The main epicenter of terror and chaos is the Iran regime. Tehran is the head of the snake of war and terror. So they don't want to see peace anywhere, whether it's the Middle East or Ukraine or other places. That's why we need to focus, if we want peace anywhere, We need to focus on the epicenter, which is the Iran regime. We need to focus on seeing a free Iran, a democratic Iran, a republic Iran, and ending the rule of the clerics. Of course, no need for boots on the ground or appropriating money. The people of Iran are already engaged in doing that. There is tremendous support for change in Iran, especially the younger generation. The people have already rejected that. There is an organized force. We need to get the attention of Washington and everywhere else. That's why this coming Saturday on March 8th, there's going to be a big rally in Washington. Thousands of Iranians are coming from across the country to call for firm policy, to call for a free Iran, for a democratic Iran. And I hope that gets the attention of the White House, the U.S. Congress, and everybody else in Washington and around the world.
I said on this network yesterday, the fall of the mullahs is much closer than most Americans know. It could happen on Donald Trump's watch, and that would be really historic. Ali, great to have you.
Thank you so much. And as you mentioned, who thought that Assad will fall in 11 days?
Exactly.
And they were the proxy
shot
of the Iran regime. The same situation should happen and will happen.
I believe that's true.
Iran.
Ali Reza Jafarzadeh, always great having a conversation with you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
He's always got such great insight into that. All right, everybody, we have much more for you coming up after this break, so do not go anywhere.
Hey, folks, did you know that American homeowners have over $32 trillion in equity? That's an amazing figure, but you know the bad news? Criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. Scammers can transfer your title right out of your name using a one-page document they file at the county. Then they can take out loans against your equity, even sell it behind your back. And the scariest part, you won't find out about it until collection or foreclosure notices start arriving in your mailbox. Now, that is something you don't want to have happen, leaving you, of course, when that happens, in a financial and legal nightmare. The best way to protect your equity is with Home Title Lock's exclusive $1 million triple lock protection. This service offers 24/7 monitoring, urgent alerts, and if fraud should occur, the U.S.-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title. So when was the last time you checked on your title? If you're like me, the answer is never. And that's exactly why scammers are counting on you to fail. The good news is for 2025, Home Title Lock is offering you 25% off. And you also get a free title history report when you go to HometitleLock.com and use my promo code JTN25. Now make sure you check out the $1 million triple lock protection details when you get there. One more time, go to HometitleLock.com, use the promo code JTN25.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. President Trump has wasted no time implementing policies to make America safer. Many of them, of course, have to do with the border and stopping illegal immigrants from getting into the country. But what do we do with the ones who are already here, especially the most violent and criminal among them? Do we deport them and risk them coming back into the country, if that's even possible at this point? Well, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth traveled to Guantanamo Bay in Cuba today, where he toured the facility and he received briefings on operations supporting illegal aliens deportation, as well as housing illegal alien criminals there. So with us to discuss that plan and much more, like what is going on with Ukraine negotiations, is former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainee Affairs from the Heritage Foundation, Cully Stimson. Cully, great to have you here with us tonight.
Great to be with you.
I want to ask you what it looks like, for Secretary Hegseth to go down to Guantanamo Bay. He's obviously getting a tour. I know he's been there in the past, but this time as secretary, getting a tour of this facility. I imagine, I would certainly assume that this is a maximum security prison. What does that tour look like for him, and what's he looking for down there?
Yeah, of course, the base has been in U.S. hands since 1903, but it's housed migrants, non-terrorist criminal migrants and migrants in the 90s during the Clinton administration. That's before 9/11. And so they put them in tents, literally on the golf course and on the airstrip there. There's two airstrips, a World War II era one and a newer one. And so Pete, who served there when he was on active duty, is touring the non-terrorist detention side of the base, where they've set up the tent cities for potential migrants to be housed. And then he's gone over to the other side of the base where he worked. On active duty, where we had the terrorist detention facilities. And by the way, There's only 15 terrorist detainees there, so there's a lot of room at the inn. There's 6 camps there, Amanda, that can house over 500 people. So there's plenty of room at the inn. So I'm sure Pete is just checking out the logistics. The main constraining factor at Gitmo, Amanda, is water. We have a desalinization plant there that can only desalinate so much water every day, and that's the limiting factor at Gitmo.
Right, and desalination is a very expensive treatment. President Trump signed an executive order. I think this was one of his day one executive orders, or maybe it came out a few days after. But President Trump designated cartels like Tren de Aragua, Sinaloa, MS-13, a whole list of these South American and Central American gangs as terrorists. So if Gitmo is the place where we put terrorists, and I think that just colloquially that's what Americans are used to thinking of Gitmo's purpose being, if those people are terrorists now in the eyes of the law, at least according to the executive, then these people who are committing atrocities, who might not necessarily be specifically members of these type gangs, but they're committing the same activities, doesn't it make sense that they belong there?
So it does, but you have to sort of use a fine tool here to divide up the various categories of folks. So the easiest people to remove from the country are people who have final orders of deportation. So if they're gang members or not, it doesn't really matter. If they have a final order of deportation and their appeals have been exhausted, you can take them to Gitmo, and of course some people are always going to complain. And then you can use that as a temporary transfer station and then move them to other countries. And we've seen that with the first batch that has gone there. The people who are simply designated as terrorists who are here illegally, there'll be legal challenges if you take them to Gitmo. We've already seen those legal challenges take place. And so I think they're on the safest legal ground by just putting people who have final orders of removal there.
Cully, treatment-wise, I don't know what the level of treatment should be at somewhere like Gitmo. If you are a terrorist and you have committed some of these most atrocious crimes, then I don't really think that you should have, it should be a bed and breakfast type experience for you. But there's so many liberals out there on mainstream media who are selling these sob stories about how these people are being treated. Are they being treated according to their behavior?
They're being treated humanely. That's the requirement under the law. When I was a Deputy Assistant Defense Secretary after 9/11, and we took the first European delegations to Guantanamo to look at the facilities for the terrorist detainees, they literally said that they're treated better than they are in European prisons and jails, which of course made the left's heads explode, but it was true. Yeah. And so the facilities there are first class. And believe it or not, Amanda, 2 of the jails there are literally carbon copies of jails in the Midwest in the United States. They're literally the same exact specifications. And so these are top-notch facilities run by professionals. They get 3 hots and a cot. They get visits by their lawyers, calls to their family members, excellent medical treatment. We have an obligation to treat them humanely, and then we have an obligation and a moral obligation to send them home.
That's right. That's right. I want to go back to something that you said a moment ago about there being plenty of room at the inn. Just how much room are we talking?
I can't remember the exact numbers, Amanda, but I think well over 600 beds. These are individual cells. Some of the camps 1, 2, and 3, and 3 are sort of minimalist facilities. Camp 4 is an open air facility. Think of it like a big, huge football field with a fence around it and houses in it where they can commune together. Camp 5 and 6 are like maximum security prisons. They're literally the maximum security prisons that they barged in and copycats of what's in Michigan and I think Ohio. And those look like supermax facilities. A variety of detention space down there, and depends on your level of compliance. So we put the most compliant detainees in Camp 4. They got to have communal meals. There's a volleyball court right in the middle, a little mini soccer pitch in the middle. They got to do their own laundry. But like any facility in the United States, prison or jail, how you're housed is dependent on your compliance with the rules.
Cully, it seems to me that Gitmo could be maybe best utilized as almost like a halfway house. You're getting these criminals out of the country, then you take them to Gitmo, that's where they get processed, and then they get sent back home. And it seems like you could create kind of a conveyor belt situation where we're just constantly deporting. Is that what it seems like to you?
Nailed it. That's exactly what it is. It's a temporary sort of revolving door facility. And I think that's the intent of this order. And Pete knows the drill. I mean, when he was down there as just an active duty soldier, Gitmo was closing from the day it was open. There were 700 communities at Gitmo. Now there's 15. From the day it was open, they started bringing people in there. We were letting people out of there. Compared to the 75,000 we had in Iraq and 25,000 we had in Afghanistan, where we have none today, Gitmo is always a revolving door, and that's what it's going to be used for. Hopefully, for people with final orders of removal, because then their legal challenges will just fail outright, and they'll just move them on to their either repatriate them to their home countries or third countries willing to take them.
Absolutely. Cully, before we let you go, what type of, other than the desalination and the foodstuffs and things like that are resources required at Gitmo, as far as the human personnel resources, how many troops do you think we ideally need there, not only for the security of that facility, but also the processing operations we talked about?
Depends on the number of migrants they're going to take down there. I mean, it's completely proportionally dependent on that. But remember, we've had this base since 1903. It was used in World War I for the Atlantic Fleet, World War II, in the interwar period of Vietnam, Korea, counter-drug operations. We're used to cycling people in and out of Gitmo all the time. There's plenty of housing for personnel and their families. There's a Dodge school down there. There's a movie theater down there. There's a base hospital. So there's plenty of room. And it's a short flight from Southcom in Miami. So that base, Amanda, and the CO of that base is dual-hatted. She or he not only is in charge of running the base, but they're also in charge of migrant ops. And they plan and train for that way before Trump came to office, way before Bush came to office after 9/11. That's been the case since the 90s. So they're trained and equipped and ready for this mission.
Move them in, move them out. I have a feeling that this could become a very well-oiled machine in a very short amount of time. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainee Affairs, the perfect person to have this conversation with. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Cully.
Great to be with you.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, coming up, we're going to talk about making America healthy again, and it starts with making yourself healthy again. That's next.
Hey, America, the fight to restore our great nation is only beginning, and now is the time to take a stand, and Patriot Mobile is leading the charge. As America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on quality or convenience. That's important, right? Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service, it's a call to action to defend our rights and our freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you'll get outstanding nationwide coverage because they operate on all three major networks. Now, if you have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile with a coverage guarantee. But the difference is every dollar you spend supports the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and first responders. Switching is easy. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their 100% US-based customer support team are going to help you find the right plan for you. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT and get a free month of service with promo code JUSTNEWS. Switch to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every call and text you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/justnews or call 972-PATRIOT.
Welcome back to Just the News, No Noise. Time now to talk about making America healthy again. And one of the best ways you can do that is to make yourself healthy again, too. So John and I spoke to Dr. Chad Walding of Native Path a few days ago, and he has the perfect way for you to try to start getting healthier today. Check it out.
It's great to have you on. I want to get a little bit into the history of Native Path, but the last time you were on, I got a lot of interesting DMs on social media. People saying collagen, I always hear about it in terms of Hollywood stars, but how important is it to the body? It's such an important building block of the body. Could you walk us through why collagen is so important to our bodies?
You could say it's the most important building block because it makes up 90% of the body. It's the most abundant protein in our body. It's what makes up our hair, our skin, our nails, our tendons, our ligaments. Our brain is dependent on collagen. Our heart health is dependent on collagen, the fascia. Even our bones are dependent on collagen. But one of the main issues is our modern world, we're extremely deficient in collagen because of the modern diet. We eat so different than than the way our ancestors did just 100 years ago. They got plenty of collagen in their diets because they would eat nose to tail. They would take the bones of an animal, they would break that down into soups. They would get plenty of collagen in their natural diet. And in our modern diet, where we have red dyes and artificial colorings and sugar and industrial seed oils and refined and processed foods, we're not getting the nutrition that we need. We're not getting enough protein, and we're certainly not getting enough collagen. So our body, it gets collagen from our diets, and we produce it on our own. But as we age, we begin to produce less and less collagen on our own. This starts around the age of 20. It starts to really accelerate around the age of 50. And when we don't have enough collagen, that's when we start to see a lot of problems with the body breaking down. Weaker bones, tendons that snap, sheaths, rotator cuffs that tear, and things like that. So it's incredibly important. And I saw this as a physical therapist. People going into surgeries, people dealing with back pain, herniated disc, knee pain, things like that. They always got better results when we started to recommend collagen to them.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and that feeds into my question, because I know your background in PT led you to this place where you started Native Path. Was it seeing those injuries in your patients that got the wheels turning about how important collagen is?
That was a big part of it, yeah. And another part was actually going into people's homes. I spent a lot of time as a home health physical therapist, and I got to go in their homes. And these are people that aren't strong or well enough to go to outpatient therapy, people dealing with heart disease, cancers, obesity, and really seeing the link between diet and food, and really asking myself, and I started studying the health of our ancestors. What were they getting that we're not? Right? What nutritions and minerals and vitamins were they getting that we're not? And what toxins are we dealing with in the modern world that they were never dealing with? And what's the connection between why we're seeing this rise in metabolic health issues, the rise in cancer, the rise in obesity, and particularly the children? Why are our children now getting obese and they are getting cancer at a rapid rate? So Native Path is we really value whole food nutrition. We really value purity and excellence in our products. So you're not going to find any Native Path product that has artificial colors or sugars or chemical solvents. It's as close to nature as possible. And that's the case with our collagen too. There's lots of different types of collagen you can get out there. Most of what you're finding is going to be collagen coming from China with cows that are living on dirt and given hormones and antibiotics. That is not how we do it at Native Path, right? The collagen that you see is type 1, type 3, the most bioavailable, abundant forms of collagen in your body. And we source it from cows that live like cows are supposed to live. Like cows are supposed to eat grass and roaming hills and getting sunshine and drinking water, never giving hormones and antibiotics. So that radically impacts the quality of the product that you put in your body and how well you actually absorb it and the difference that it's going to make in your body.
You have an important term in terms of what Native Path does for you, and it means to get on the path. What does that mean for everyday people like us who want to try the products?
It means starting with protein, and it means doing the things in terms of eating, moving, and living that your body is designed for and it thrives for, right? It means whole food nutrition, getting rid of the toxins in your body, saying to yourself, I'm going to get healthy, I'm going to get on the path. And that also means recognizing what is off the path, right? If we're going to make America healthy again, it starts truly with our next grocery run, what we put actually in our grocery cart. So rather than put the artificial chemicals and the refined and processed foods, shop on the ends. You just saw a video of it, real whole food without labels. Yeah. Make your meals. You're going to do one of the best things you can for your health, for your family, and also in our collective efforts to make America healthy again.
Yeah, I had a goal starting last year that when I went to the grocery store, I would buy more things without labels than things with labels, and it has definitely kept me closer to the path. I want to ask you, I've seen a couple studies recently about the connection between collagen and weight loss, which intuitively speaking, I guess I wouldn't necessarily make that connection, but there is one, isn't there?
Yeah, most people don't think about that. But the thing is, as we mentioned earlier, collagen is a protein, and protein is extremely satiating. You actually burn calories. Your metabolism heats up when you consume protein. And if you can start your day with protein, that radically impacts your relationship with food for the rest of the day because it helps you balance your blood sugar. So the off the path way of doing breakfast is waking up and just bombarding ourselves with lots of refined carbohydrates and bagels and breads liquids and juices, we get a big blood sugar spike. We'll be craving sugar for the rest of the day. That's going to be the thing that sets us up for diabetes and obesity. When you start your day with protein, like collagen, and good fats, like avocado or even butter, things like that, you stabilize your blood sugar, you fix the issues of cravings, and it just makes the weight loss so much easier. And you have good energy throughout the day that's really long-lasting energy and not like this yo-yo kind of up and down energy throughout the day. So it's one of the best things you can do, and one of those simplest things you can do to help with your weight issues, but also the structure of your body.
Yeah, so amazing. Doctor, you've set up a special website for all of our fans here, getnativepath.com/justnews, getnativepath.com/justnews. Tell us what our viewers will find when they go there.
Well, you're going to find out more about collagen, and some of the things I talked about here. You're going to get more research and understanding of what it's good for, and you're also going to get a special discount. Like we want you to try this and go ahead and get 6 bottles. And here's what I suggest to you: take 2 scoops a day for 8 weeks and see the transformation that goes on in your body. Take a before picture and then take a picture later on 8 weeks, and you can start that transformation today. So it's something we want to do to help people get on the path, and like we're all doing here is make America healthy again. It starts with what we put in our body.
Yeah, so very exciting. And you guys have made it so easy for us. And we're all busy, and we always find an excuse not to focus on our health. You've made it darn simple for us. That's really great.
And remember, everybody, you can go to getnativepath.com/justnews to get started on your health transformation today. All right, one final break to get to, but we'll be back on the other side of these messages. All right, welcome back, everybody, to our final segment of the evening. Time now to get to an interview that John and I did last Friday with a fascinating guest. He is former Congressman and Reagan speechwriter Dana Rohrabacher. He has a new book out called Fighting for Freedom and Having Fun. Just a great interview. Check it out.
When I came to Washington in the late 1980s, early 1990s, he was one of the first members of Congress I met. And over the last 30 years, I've gotten to know his extraordinary story more than anyone. He's an extraordinary hero. Served with Ronald Reagan, went to fight with the Mujahideen to fight against the Soviets in Afghanistan before bin Laden turned on us. And today he's the author of a brand new book coming out. He is a former Congressman, Dana Rohrabacher from the great state of California. Dana, good to have you here.
Thank you.
look at that crowd. They remember your great work. Dana, you wrote a book, and it's a sort of a memoir. It's sort of a look back at the extraordinary career you had. Tell us a little bit about what people are going to be surprised about.
Well, and I'm exposing things, too.
Of course you are.
But, yeah, I figured I better write it down before I forgot it. I'm 77 years old now.
That's an important thing.
So, but I've been blessed with an extraordinary life, and I was blessed originally with having met Ronald Reagan and worked with his first campaign for governor.
Amazing.
And that set my course.
And I'm sure you know your tenacity and what turned into your value to Ronald Reagan. You were featured in the film that came out last year, starring Dennis Quaid, and that was such a wonderful storyline. So you obviously meant so much to Ronald Reagan. I want to ask you about that within today's context, because Ronald Reagan was so transformational. He was obviously coming off of economic devastation under Jimmy Carter, gas lines, so he had to do a lot economically. President Trump is dealing with not only economic issues, border crises. Compare that transformational quality from Ronald Reagan to what we're seeing now in President Trump.
Well, President Ronald Reagan was a man, and by the way, he taught me how to write. Let me just say, I was a speechwriter for Ronald Reagan.
Right.
People think that's great. No, he taught me how to write.
Amazing.
And he was the best writer we had.
Yeah.
And he leveled with the American people. That was it. He leveled with the American people, and we were able to, that's how you mobilize support and change the situation if it's a bad situation. And this president has done just that. He's mobilized the American people. Look at this.
Yeah.
It's insane to say this would have happened if we had another president.
That's right.
Trump is now our hero of the day. He's the Ronald Reagan of the day.
Yeah.
Reagan mobilized the American people to turn around some horrible trends in our society. And now we know that Trump is mobilizing the American
same
people
thing.
to save our country the way Ronald Reagan did.
Yeah, the parallels are remarkable. Daniel, we only have a couple minutes left. I know there's a lot of accountability and truths that you tell in this book. There's a great story that you shared with me in the past about 9/11 and the warning you got ahead of time. You tried to take it to the intelligence community, and the deep state just ignored it. Can you give us a little summary of what happened that day?
Well, people don't know how much I played in Afghanistan.
I know.
I went into Afghanistan with the Mujahideen.
Right.
And I participated in the Battle of Jalalabad.
Right.
And I will just, don't know what I can tell you, but I earned the allegiance of a lot of people who were fighting communism and understood that I was an advocate for their success in defeating communism.
Right.
And when I got back, I got warned by one of the leaders of the Mujahideen.
Right.
Said, you know what's going to happen? They're going to, they're going to kill a lot of Americans here.
Right.
And they're going to, and they outlined for me that they're going to fly airplanes into buildings. They weren't. These are the guys who were on our side.
Yeah.
But they'd gotten the information that there was an effort to put together a team to fly planes into buildings, and also, which they didn't get to do, but I think we stopped it, but I don't know if they did or not. But they were going to send teams into nuclear power plants and blow them up, and a nuclear power plant, and it would affect millions of Americans.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just thousands of.
You brought it to the government's attention, right? No one paid attention, did they?
I decided I needed to. I've talked to a lot of people in the government. I don't want to go through names, but no one paid attention.
Yeah.
And the night before, I'll never forget. The night before 9/11, I was so upset, and I was walking out with two of my staffers, saying, nobody's paying attention to me. This is going to be the worst terrorist attack in our country's history, and nobody's paying attention. I've seen. I don't want to put them on the spot. I put pretty high-level people, and this one guy, a member of Congress who was behind me, comes up and he says, "Oh, Dana, that's what we love about you. You're so adamant about things." And I said, "What?" And sure enough, the next day at 9/11, I saw him. How did you know? How did you know?
Yeah, a terrible thing.
I just want to cut in before we let you go and say, my generation in particular, because I know you had such a heart for young Republicans, serving in Congress on Capitol Hill, serving President Reagan, the world would look very different were it not for your words and your messages delivered by Ronald Reagan. So thank you.
Well, I hope everybody gets a chance to read it. My book is coming out real soon. They can just www.com. And
we're going to tweet that out. I'm going to send it out to everybody. Dana, I know people didn't pay attention on 9/10. They're going to pay attention to your book. I'm so excited about it. Thanks for joining us.
The title is Fighting for Freedom and Having Fun.
I love it.
That was just an absolute joy to talk to Dana Rohrabacher about that. I want to fill you guys in on something that happened today at the White House. My fellow colleague, who happens to be sitting over to the side, Brian Glenn, he and I were both in the briefing room today as the press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, revealed to the press pool and everyone in that room that things are going to be looking quite different in there. And I have to say that it became a little uncomfortable in that room. And sometimes it feels like that anyway, because we have kind of our little corner of alternative media, and then you have the staunch traditional liberal organizations who are seated down the center. And sometimes it feels like there's a little bit of tension, but for the most part we get along. There was an audible gasp and a visceral outrage that just hung in the air for the rest of that press briefing. And Brian and I were talking about it. You know, these folks think that they are entitled, just like the Associated Press. They think that it is their right to have access to the President of the United States, to be in the briefing room every day, to be in the Oval Office and on Air Force One. And at every event where the President is, it's not a right. It is a privilege. And I don't take that for granted any single day. Every time I get to walk through that security and show my badge and walk up to the White House, I pinch myself because it is an absolute privilege. And I certainly hope that the people over there who think that it is their right that they have a little bit of a mind shift. I think that mind shift might be coming, whether they like it or not. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us tonight. John is going to be back here with me tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, as we are every night, and Grant Stinchfield is going to take you through the next hour, and my buddy Brian Glenn's going to hop on with Grant in just a moment.